I've been looking forward to this, and now it's here. This week I'm looking at the brand new Epiphone inspired by Gibson Custom 1959 ES355. Stay with me. In many ways, the guitars in this series are the Epiphones a lot of players have been asking for. Top quality electronics, including Gibson USA pickups, CTS pots with Mallory capacitors, a sturdy Switchcraft switch and output jack, plus quality Grover tuners. And of course, the feature that seems to get more attention than any other, the Gibson-style headstock. Now obviously at $1,300, the price is significantly higher than we're used to seeing for most modern Epiphones, especially for those who think it's mainly about the headstock. But let's set that aside for now, and I'll give you my thoughts later in the video. Now first, let's check it out and see what we have. So I bought this one brand new from an authorized dealer. And pulling it from its nice-looking tan hard case, my first impression was quite positive. Now, the translucent satin red looks more attractive in person than in the online photos, and the fit and finish is clean and tidy. I'm sure the gold hardware won't be to everyone's taste, but it's been a standard feature of the upmarket Gibson ES355s from the late 50s right up to the current custom shop models. Now this headstock does look quite correct, and it reminds me very much of the Gibson Les Paul Custom I once owned. Overall, this is an elegant looking piece. Now, the feel is all 50s, with a full rounded 50s neck profile. Epiphone calls it a 50s rounded medium C, and it feels nice and full without being too huge. Now, just like the original, the fingerboard is ebony with mother-of-pearl block inlays. Now, there's a 43mm or 1.692-inch Graphtec nut. According to the company, all dimensions and contours are exactly like the original. Now, since I won't be getting my hands on an original anytime soon, I'll have to take their word for it. Now, the Gibson Custom Bucker pickups are very vintage flavored. It's worth mentioning that just like the old ones, both pickups have the same output. I measured the resistance at the output jack as 7.8K for both, which is close enough to Gibson's published spec of 8K even. Now, in my opinion, these are among the sweetest sounding vintage PAF recreations Gibson's made, and I have to say, this thing sounds pretty legit. So now let's talk about the main complaint, which is, of course, the price. Is there value here or not? Well, first, you have to realize it's not all about the headstock, or even a custom shop pickups for that matter. It really is a combination of all the features. For instance, it has a one-piece mahogany neck, just like the identically priced 150th anniversary Sheraton. Then there's the correct 5-ply maple poplar laminate body, and even a custom shop aluminum tailpiece. Do these things matter? Well, it's hard to be 100% certain. But even unplugged, I'm noticing more depth of tone than the standard Epi semi-hollows I've played. It's not easy to describe, but it sounds and feels scary close to a good Gibson. Now, one thing I keep hearing is, why not just buy a used Gibson instead? Well, that's not an unreasonable question, but it depends on which model we're talking about. I've done a little casual shopping, and I think that's a legitimate proposition regarding some models in the series. Less so for others. Now, if you're talking about the Les Pauls, well, you can buy a used Gibson Tribute or Studio for less. If you want an SG, well, used Gibson SGs routinely sell for around the same price. Now, of course, it's not really apples to apples in terms of features, but if, say, all you want is an SG and not the 3-pickup Custom with the ebony board, or a basic Les Paul, then yeah, no problem buying a used Gibson instead, especially if you don't mind dings and playwear. That said, a used Gibson ES355 is not even in the conversation. The least expensive used 355s I could find were older B.B. King Lucille's, and of course those aren't a 59 style, have no F-holes, and are still triple the price of this Epiphone new. I couldn't find an actual 59 style 355 for less than $5,000 because they're all custom shop models. And even if you decide you don't need a fancy 355, just a regular USA 335, used examples of those typically start at around twice the price of this Epiphone 355. Now sure, you can find an old 335 Studio with repairs or other issues for less, but that's not really a valid comparison. So among the electrics in this series, it seems clear to me that while expensive for an Epiphone, this 355 feels like the best value in the line. Now, this guitar was so impressive here in my studio, I decided to take it to a gig. Now, I'd planned to just bring it out for a song or two to see how it did, but I ended up playing it for the entire show. It really has that airy, woody quality all the great semi-hollows have. So what are the downsides? Well, my only real complaint was something that's all too common with a lot of Epiphones, and many other Asian-built guitars as well, and that's prickly fret ends. Now, I've tended to give the companies a little slack, since the guitars travel halfway around the world to reach us. But then again, there are companies that produce guitars in the same region, and the problem is rarely seen. Now, for instance, I've featured Ibanez, PRS SE, and Eastman guitars that all seem to manage to get here with beautifully finished fret ends. In any case, for me it's more of a minor annoyance than a serious problem, but if you're a buyer who'll end up having to pay someone to get the fret ends cleaned up, well, it might be a bigger deal. So is this new series worth the higher price? Each of us will have to decide for ourselves. For me, I think this model is a big enough step up. On the other hand, I'm not completely sold on the solid bodies. But who knows? Ultimately, I'd have to get one in my hands before I can really form an opinion. this point, I'd like to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who've helped my little channel to continue to grow. Now, I'm doing my best to keep bringing you interesting content. No one sponsors my videos or sends me guitars to review, so it's always a bit of a challenge. And giving my videos a thumbs up and subscribing does help tremendously. And if you really enjoy what I'm doing here, consider becoming a Patreon member. For less than the price of a coffee a month, you'll be helping to continue to make this possible. And with that, I'll say goodbye for now, and I'll be back very soon.